Ouch. That's a direct hit.
Hello, and welcome back. Before we begin, I just want to let you know that this is a sister deck tech to another deck that is popping up right about now. Basically, I made a green-black value deck that involves sacking your permanents with an enchantment theme, but there were too much going on, so I split it into two decks. This is the sack one, and that one right there is the Bogles / enchantment one. So here is It Takes Two. Now the deck is named after a movie that was always on TV when I was growing up called It Takes Two. Since it was always on TV, I assumed it was a good movie. But, according to Rotten Tomatoes, I was wrong. It was quite shit. Basically, it involved two kids that looked identical swapping lives in that classic bullshit movie trope. And it starred the Olsen twins, the two blonde-haired girls that were pretty big in the 90s and early 2000s, and I'm not really sure what happened to them. Maybe, fuck it. We'll look into it right now. What are they doing?
Come on! Looking at that stuff, man.
Was that offensive? I don't really know anymore. Anyways, the deck is called It Takes Two because it basically takes two forms of destruction to kill most creatures in this deck. Like these guys, Blisterpod, Brindleshote, and Penumbra Spider. Each of these creatures leaves behind a token when they die, be it a 1/1 Eldrazi, a 3/3 Boar, or a 2/4 Spider. So essentially we get two bodies for the price of one. Same is true for our next batch of creatures. Nest Invader is a 2/2, when it comes in we get a 0/1 Eldrazi. Young Wolf is a 1/1 for green, that when it dies it comes back as a 2/2. And Viscera Seer, well, doesn't do any of that, but it allows us to sack some of our creatures, make a token, and then scry as well. Now our win con for the deck are these hexproof creatures, so Bogles and Ledgewalkers. And I know what you're thinking, hey, this isn't the Boggle deck, this is the sack deck. And yeah, you're kind of right, but we're not going to play it exactly like a Boggle deck in a sense. The Boggles aren't that great in this deck, just a 1/1 hexproof. They don't really have the evasion we need. But the Ledgewalkers do because they're hexproof and they can only be blocked by creatures with flying. So how are we playing it different from a Boggle deck? Well, let's look at our enchantments. We're playing 2 Vampiric Link and 3 Rancor. I know it's pretty similar to a Boggle deck. We have the Lifelink and the Vampiric Link, and Rancor, well, it's Rancor. Your creature get +2/+0 and trample, and when it goes to the graveyard from the battlefield, you get it back to your hand. But that ties into our sub-theme of recursion a little, which we'll get into. But the other enchantments we're using allow us to get value off of our creatures dying, more so than just the tokens. We're running Demonic Appetite, which is for 1 black, enchanted creature get +3/+3, and at the beginning of our upkeep, we have to sack a creature. Which isn't a downside for us, considering how when we sack one of our creatures, we get a nice token out of it. And then when we pair this with Sadistic Glee, we get even more value. So for 1 black, whenever a creature dies, enchanted creature gets a +1/+1 counter. So that synergizes with our sack effects as well. While it's nice that our creatures are expendable, we kind of want to get more value from them than just the one time. So this is where we'll use some recursion effects. Pulse Marassa, we can return a target creature or land from our graveyard to our hand, and we gain 6 life. That's a nice little addition. Stem the bleeding a little if we need to. We're running Unearth. It can return basically any creature from our graveyard to our hand, whether it be our win-con hexproof creatures or our creatures that just die for our benefits. And we can cycle to draw a card. And Undying Evil. If one of our creatures happens to die, we can give it Undying, and then it comes back even stronger while leaving a token behind. Moving on, we got some removal and Tragic Slip. Fits very nice with our strategy. Every sack triggers, it activates a Morbid effect, and we can give creatures -13. Any big blockers that they may have will instantly get destroyed. And then Night's Whisper, we draw 2 cards and we lose 2 life. You can't go wrong with card draw. So for lands, we're running 2 Kalini Gardens. It enters tap but makes a 0/1 green plant token for us to sack. Wonderful. running 4 Jungle Hollows, comes in tap, we gain a little life, but it does tap for both our colors in black and green. Finish it up with 6 forests and 7 swamps for 19 total lands. Okay, onto the sideboard. We're running the classic Disfigure to deal with Delver, other small creatures that may be in the way. And I know there's a card called Fungal Infection from Dominaria, and it is more synergistic with this deck. It's give target creature -1/-1, you get a 1/1 Saproling, but that extra 1 point of damage Disfigure gives is a bit more useful. We're also running Echoing Decay, which is basically a Disfigure for all cards of the same name. Shrivel, even though it'll hit our creatures, they'll leave tokens when they die, so fuck them. Scatter Shot, Archer to deal with any flyers opponents may have, mostly smaller ones. Sundering Growth, although it's a bit mana intensive for 2 green, we get to destroy an enchantment or an artifact, and then we get to populate one of our many tokens. Geth's Verdict to deal with any go tall strategies like Bogles. Duress to get rid of shit we can't deal with out of their hands. Contaminated Ground for Tron. Another Pulse Marassa if we're getting our ass kicked and we need to gain more life. It stems the bleeding a little. And finally, Bojuka Bog to deal with any graveyard shenanigans. And that's a deck. I don't have much else to say. It is fairly competitive. It basically negates all types of removal because no one wants to take out something little just to be replaced by something bigger. So if you like this deck, check out the sister deck tech on Green-Black Bogles. And like, subscribe, share, all that good shit. And I'll see you guys next time. Keep having fun.